All right. I think we're all set.
Okay. Welcome to the Daily Ramble. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric, and it's the Morning Ramble, but that's okay.
Let's restart that.
All right.
Welcome to the Morning Ramble. I'm Matt.
And I'm Eric.
And today we're going to be going over only one meme because it's a pretty serious one that's got a lot to unpack in it.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about how poor we all are.
It's going to be really nice and
It's
fun.
going to be exhilarating.
Wholesome family entertainment.
Yes. So sit down, grab some popcorn.
And eat that popcorn. All right. So this is the meme. I do not think that 50% of the world's billionaires should be women. I don't think there should be any billionaires at all. Then this person breaks down their ideas, and we don't necessarily have to unpack all of that. Just the basic idea is, should there be billionaires? And this is basically about wealth inequality.
Yeah. And we'll go back to her explanation because, I've seen there's so many memes out there, and it's a huge topic right now in today's news cycle, and other people on podcasts and people that we listen to, they're always talking about minimum wage or the wealth gap. And, no one seems to have a solution, or if you do have a solution, more than half the country is against you. So
this is true. Redistribution of wealth is definitely a very serious topic, and we are not economists.
No.
But we're going to give it a shot anyway and see if we can cut things down.
A macroeconomics class in Penn State.
I took a meteorology class, but I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow.
And I don't remember that class at all, other than I got an F.
For fantastic.
So, and I was telling you before, like I have multiple stances on this, and my opinion varies because it is something that affects someone personally. It affects all of us. And, redistribution, like I said, is a very, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not popular. It's not something that a lot of people are for, including myself.
But at the same time, it is gaining popularity.
Oh, absolutely. It's very mainstream.
As the consensus in America gets more, I don't necessarily want to say liberal, but probably socialist is probably the right term for it.
Yes.
That idea definitely carries more and more weight in this country.
Yeah. And I think what the first point that I want to point out is like the wealth gap. Is it if a very simple question would be, is it a good thing or a bad thing? So if you ask that to anyone, a lot of people would say, oh, it's a bad thing, right? That's a pretty easy answer. But to me, it's almost like I view it as, and I've seen other people like Dennis Prager point out that it's a good thing. It's a good thing that the wealth gap, because, I think the argument that I was reading is that it makes something that is rare and in low supply yesterday available to everyone today. So like the argument that they had was like, look at the cell phone back in like 1990. It was a brick. It cost several grand. It didn't work. Now we can go to Walmart and get one for what, $50? Who knows?
Or less. I mean, it depends on what you define as a cell phone these days, I guess.
Yeah. And the thing is like, how is that possible? You know what I mean? Because the argument that a lot of people, especially like, I guess you could say on my side, people on conservative side, is that it's the result of a free market. People able to buy these things and to perfect them and to make them available to all. And you can say it across a lot of electronics, televisions. I mean, look at even when in my lifetime, televisions, the ones that are available now were probably several grand a couple years ago, and now they're like $800. So.
I mean, one of the questions that you kind of have to ask yourself when you're talking about this topic is a question about capitalism itself. And it's like, is pure capitalism, which is basically what we have in this country, is that feasible? Because capitalism is what causes these massive billionaires to exist.
Yes.
You don't find that in most socialized states in the world.
Yeah.
Most millionaires and billionaires are in capitalist societies, especially here. and it kind of to your point there, and I sort of agree with you there, but Japan has so many socialist programs that help with redistribution of wealth and just social programs. I'm not saying that they're taking a bunch of money from millionaires and throwing it at poor people. That's not what they're doing. But they're also on the cutting edge of the technology that you're talking about. So it's like maybe like the crazy redistribution of wealth that people are screaming about that says, hey, we should eat the billionaires and take all their money. Yeah. I've seen that one. That's messed up.
Well, here's the thing, though. And when you said the billionaires and like the one, and then, Bernie, the 1% has more wealth than the 99%, and the 1% of that 1%. Here's the thing. It's not a room with 10 people, sitting around, and they're like the sole people. Like that door is always revolving. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize
so many millionaires and billionaires.
That people are coming in and out of wealth, and a lot of times they're not in there that long. It peaks, and the door is always open. And I think the main question, because the question of like, is there a wealth gap? Obviously there is. Is it a good or bad thing? That could be debated. But I think the main question that people might have a problem with is like, how did they get there? Is the system corrupt? Obviously there's probably a little bit of corruption. I think you'd be naive to say there's not, between taxes, social programs, stuff like that. But I think the question is like, is it something that is still achievable to the common citizen today? What do you think of that? Like, do you think it's possible for someone to get there?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, you see so many different things of it. And one thing that I definitely wanted to point out in this particular topic, is internet personalities, like YouTubers, your Markipliers, your Philip DeFrancos, and stuff like that. Yep. Now, I don't know how much these people make, and neither does Forbes.
No, I mean there's a rough. I mean, I know
they
Philip DeFranco has kind of said
estimates.
how much he makes.
Yeah.
He's been pretty open with it in some of the videos that I've seen of him.
But it's like an internet career generally lasts for a fairly short time in somebody's life, and a lot of these guys are doing 3 videos a day.
Yep,
and they're making bank. But they're making bank for 5 years or less, and then for the rest of their lives, they've got to go and do something else. So if they become millionaires now, and they're putting away a nest egg for them to survive off of for the rest of their lives, why wouldn't they be able to do that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to go into this point, but just the point I want to make about that is like, then you can get into the idea, like these internet personalities, is that, the suppression of monetization, like on videos, them making money. As soon as someone starts talking about something that's even somewhat controversial, they're not making money anymore, and it's up to their followers to connect that gap and for them to make it worthwhile for them even doing it as soon as these channels get big. But I don't want to go too much into that. We can talk about that another time, free speech and stuff like that online. But you're right. The opportunity is there, in my opinion. Is it easy to achieve? No, it's not. It takes a lot of hard work and a little bit of luck.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think that's and I think the end result, as far as redistribution goes, I don't know if that's the end result or not, and I don't know if I even agree with it. I know that I saw the video. Like Jeff Bezos is in the news, obviously, because he's like the richest man in the world, or like I don't know how much he's worth, like 150 billion.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And I'm torn on that, because at one time, like, who am I to say what he should do with his money? It's his company. He pays, his workers. I think I think the average pay for an Amazon employee is like the high end of $13 an hour to $14, something like that.
Right.
Depending on where you live, that's pretty good.
Right.
If you live somewhere with a high cost of living, it's not so great. But who's to say, what he should do with his money? And I think that's when you start going into those those social programs,
right,
and getting away from, because he got there obviously with the free market. But the thing is because he had something that people wanted. Amazon controls, I think, almost 50% of online transactions, something like that. I don't know. I think I heard that. I mean, that's not hard to believe.
Oh, it's absolutely not
Maybe
hard
it's
to
more.
believe.
I don't
and
know.
It's like Amazon has especially with books.
Yeah.
Amazon is the king of books.
Yes.
Like they started their own publishing thing.
Yeah. And then now, I mean, now you have a lot of retailers are going out of business. Like we saw Toys R Us, Babies R Us, those are out. I mean, I wouldn't blame that all on Amazon, but you know, they are becoming somewhat of a monopoly, I would say, to the internet. You know, I would say 50% is borderline monopolization in that market. And I'm as someone who believes in the free market, I don't like that. You know, the question is what type of laws and things that can you do to kind of suppress that, I guess you could say.
It's kind of scary when like one company controls so much of a market.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even afraid of Disney.
Disney, they control all the movies.
They control all the
Everything
movies.
you
They own a
watch.
bunch of online content. They just own everything. It's scary.
Yeah,
they killed Spider-Man.
They killed Spider-Man.
I still didn't watch the movie.
But the 2 points about the wealth gap that I want to go back to is, I think the reason why we don't have full outrage, like, because when you hear someone is worth 150 billion, and yet you hear of maybe like a local community, like the median income is like 32 grand or something like that. Why isn't there like people with pitchforks going to Jeff Bezos' door? And I think the reason for that is the way that we live today. So 30 years ago, I'm living better than my grandparents or my parents, as far as, like, you could say, things that are accessible to me. I mean, we have cell phones that can access all information known to man, pretty much. I mean, we can call anyone by the press of a button. Not even a button. It's a screen now. It's not even a button.
I miss the buttons.
I miss the button. We have TVs that are pretty much home cinemas. I mean,
oh yeah,
like, these are things that people did not have 20, 30 years ago.
Our creature comforts have gone up significantly. Yeah. We live way better than previous generations have.
But yeah, the way we live is much better.
Yeah, I don't really think that can be too much argued.
No.
I do think there is something to the redistribution of wealth. Because it does make a good amount of sense, and social programs in other countries, a lot of them have gone very, very well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too into healthcare or something. I'm sure we'll do a deep dive on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, we are the most expensive country with healthcare, and we don't even have the best quality healthcare.
Not trying to go into healthcare too much, because I do have quite a bit of points on that, but I don't think that's just because of the government maybe not providing, enough for its citizens. I think it has something to do with the government being too involved with healthcare. Because the cost of, like, let's say an IV bag is, like, if you actually looked at the cost without insurance, isn't like somewhere up of $80 or something like that for a bag of water or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's saline.
Saline. That's nuts. But holding back from that, going back to what you said about redistribution, I'll tell you why I'm torn a little bit, because politically I am completely against it, because I don't think I should be telling someone what they should be doing with their money. It's not my money.
Right.
But from kind of like my beliefs, my religious belief standpoint, and I'm going to throw up this meme right here, the one that I was telling you about. There's a meme I saw, I think Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's page shared. It was a picture, it was a painting of Jesus speaking. And it said, help your neighbor and take care of the poor. And then everyone's just like, oh, so we should give our money to the Romans so they can do it. And then he's like, hold on, let me restart from the beginning. Tell me where I lost you. And I think the point that they're making is that, as far as like the poor and the people that need help, like, we shouldn't be, the point of that Jesus was making is like, we shouldn't be like giving our money to the government to do what we should be doing in our own lives, charity, helping out our communities, stuff like that. And I think it's almost a little bit lazy to just be like, oh, someone says like Jesus was a socialist. No, he wasn't. You know what I mean? And plus, he was very against taxation. But I think his point he was making is like helping someone out in the community. But the redistribution thing is like, I try to put myself in like someone's shoes, and it's hard to imagine being worth 150 billion. Like, I can't even fathom that. But I don't think I would be building like 5 mansions and owning yachts across the country. Like I know that for a fact. Like I know me personally, whenever I think about having a lot of money, I always think about helping out my family and community, like to make everyone's lives a little bit better. So I'm torn because I look at what he's doing and it's like I would never do something like that.
I'd buy like 10 yachts.
No, see.
And I'd give them to the poor.
Yeah.
Hang on, I just
yachts are an American
something
right.
something just popped in my head. I want to say it before before it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I started a sentence earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Where it's like the crazy redistribution of wealth that a lot of radicalized liberals are saying.
Yeah.
I completely disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Small steps.
Yeah.
Like just small steps with social programs, especially with like veterans and stuff. Because, man, we got way too many homeless veterans.
Yes.
All right. So the VFW really has far too few resources right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of veterans have to wait, days, weeks, months to get their treatments, things that they need. And a lot of these guys, were injured. Being in the military is hell on your knees and at your joints and just everything. It's very strenuous, and it does break down your body and it breaks down your mind. It's a rough thing. So small steps like that, helping our veterans, which I think everybody should be in on.
I don't think anyone's going to argue on that.
Exactly. But why haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely funding towards them. You could definitely make the argument that there's not enough.
Yeah,
obviously.
Definitely.
And yeah, there's always going to be a need somewhere, and it's just a matter of people in the government delegating where our funds go. A lot of people, I'm not so much on this side, but just to point out, like a lot of people would argue, there's too much funding into the military. Going from veterans to military, you know what I mean? And I know like the libertarian platform is going to, a lot of them are going to say, why are we in so many countries? Why are we doing too many things? Not going into that today, but the funds are there and it's all about where they go, and a lot of people would say like, why are we having so many, why are we funding so many different like environmental programs when you're right, there are a lot of, a lot of veterans on the street or they don't have good medical coverage.
Right.
For something that they obviously did, for their country. So it's, there's always going to be need somewhere. But I think one reason why I think there's not complete uproar and pitchforks to Jeff Bezos or to whoever owns the Walmart. I know there's the family.
The
Waltons. Sure.
That's their name.
That's why they're called Walmart. Is because you don't have to be worth $150 billion to live a good life in America.
Oh my God.
Just the fact that you're born in America means that you have a better life than a lot of people. And I'm not saying America is the best country in the world. I do believe that. But I think it's the best place to live and there's a reason why people want to come here. You can argue definitely that there's better social programs in other countries. There's also a lot higher taxes in other countries.
This is true, but that pays for the social programs. You're talking like 60.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking like 60% in some of those European countries over there that have them. But I think what makes America flourish is the free market, and I'll never argue against that because it is why we have a lot of these things. And it is why we live like someone, just living and working a 9-to-5 job, making not even a fraction of what Jeff Bezos makes. You're able to live a pretty decent life.
Yeah. I'm not living in a straw hut.
Exactly.
It's a little better than a straw hut. It's got heating and air conditioning.
It's a tin hut. I don't know.
I built it myself out of chewing gum and hopes and dreams.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a demand for better wages. Redistribution is a very unpopular topic. The minimum wage, raising that, is also a very popular topic. It's, it definitely has its, ups and downs. I personally, I think it can only hurt people as far as the minimum wage goes. I don't know how far we want to go into this, but it's, a $15 minimum wage. Yeah, sure. Amazon could afford that. Walmart could can probably afford that if they need to. Are they going to start minimizing how many employees they have? I bet you they would. I bet you Walmart wouldn't have as many cashiers. I bet you they have more self-service stations.
Well, it does appear that a lot of companies are going into this. For example, Wendy's has all those screens now where you just order your food.
Oh, that reminds me.
On the screen.
This weekend's broadcast is sponsored by Wendy's.
Always by Wendy's.
It's not. Or it could be.
How's it going, Dave?
Yeah.
He's dead, probably.
But Wendy's not. Yeah, it's, I think it would hurt a lot of smaller businesses. And I'm not saying like, oh, the shop down the street, because there's not many small businesses that I know of, but it definitely can affect some smaller chains in this country if they have to start raising their wages. And I think it's also hard to measure because the cost of living is so different in so many different areas. So like a federal law just across the board isn't going to work. Could you do it by state? Probably, because we already do it by state,
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like if you lived in LA and you were making minimum wage, you wouldn't live in LA.
No.
That just wouldn't happen.
Yeah. I don't even know what LA's minimum wage is. But
I don't know off the top of my head.
It's probably pretty high though compared to where we are.
It really does depend on your cost of living. In all areas, like in our area we have long winters and a lot of times they're pretty rough. So it's like, all right, now we're factoring in heating and cooling costs and there's a lot of factors.
The thing is that goes back to the argument of it's like, oh, you can't live off minimum wage, and to the answer to that is duh. You're not supposed to. I think one of the main things, like, a lot of people say, oh, I have like 6 kids or something like that, and I work minimum wage. It's like, why do you have that many kids, and why do you work minimum wage? That is fiscally irresponsible. It's extremely irresponsible. You shouldn't be starting a family when you work at Wendy's or McDonald's. You know what I mean? Making minimum wage.
Sponsored by Wendy's. But not really. Well, yeah, that is definitely a good point. A lot of families back in past generations had way more kids.
Yeah.
And you can very clearly see that, our generation having way less kids because our generation knows, for the most part, that we can't afford 9 kids. And also, I don't want 9 kids. That's too many kids.
Why not?
That's one's too many.
Too many
kids.
Matts walking around.
I named them all Matt.
Matt 1, Matt 2. Yeah, it's definitely something that I think the end result is going to be some type of social program that breaks it, because all right. Wait, we're back on?
We're still back on.
Oh, okay. Sorry, our audio's going in and out. This is going to be very hard to edit and post.
It's going to be great, Eric.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fade in and fade outs.
Yeah. It's good.
But I think that's pretty much, I think I tackled every point that I wanted to go on, because I think my main belief is that, we are definitely living better than we did yesterday, as far as a country goes. And you don't need to have that much money to have a very rich and fulfilling life.
This is true.
So,
but my life is never going to be as fulfilling as Jeff Bezos's.
That's right. You don't have it.
I don't have 5 yachts.
Yeah, to give to poor people.
All right. I do want to just say a couple other things on this topic.
Yeah.
While we're at it, I do think that I am a little bit more left leaning than you are. I do think that social programs do work a lot to help people that need it. But I also think, unlike a lot of people on my side of the political spectrum, that is not a permanent solution. These programs should be designed inherently to help get somebody out of a hole.
Yeah. And that's, and
put them on their feet.
Completely agree with that. And I think that our current welfare state, our current programs that are in place right now are not designed to do that. And it's not like I'm against social programs. I am completely open. If you can show me a social program and how it will work in this country, and stop pointing, I'm not saying you, but and stop pointing to other countries. Oh, look at this, it's working. Let's do this. I'm not against it. Point it out. If it works, you know, and it works to lift people out of that hole and get them into a more comfortable spot, I'm totally open to that. I'm not as, like, you know, completely against it as you know, I think the government should have a role to play as far as, you know, decreasing our unemployment and, you know, raising that poverty line so that, lowering the poverty line. So
Yeah, I mean, if we have a strong middle class in the country, we will go so far. Yeah. And, you know, I think you could say the middle class is a very, you know, where that line falls is very debatable, because I've had, I think it was a couple of years ago, I think President Obama, he said like someone asked him what he thought like the middle class was or something like that, and I think he said something around like 100 to 150 grand a year, like an annual salary, and I'm like, whoa, I am not in the middle class. Like, and then poorer than I thought.
I'm poorer than I thought. And look what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of gets warped when you make as much money as most high politicians do. Mm-hmm. High politicians. Who says that?
I don't know.
I do.
I know what you're saying, though.
As most of those guys do, because, you know,
career politicians. You're talking about people who have been there forever, like Pelosi and
Schumer. $400,000 a year, you're just like, I mean, $100,000 a year, that's a quarter of what I make. That's middle class.
That's middle class. Yeah. So
I mean, I get, that's about all I have to say on the topic.
Okay.
That's coming to mind.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why this show's called The Ramble, because we are literally just rambling.
Yes.
On and on and on.
The Morning Ramble.
It's morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for
listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.